Now here is what I believe I can say is a deliberate, known, false, misleading statement. It goes on to say, throughout this long-running dispute, the RBS has sustained efforts to reach a fair and reasonable resolution with Mr. Grace that would allow both sides to achieve closure. Last week, in a final attempt to resolve matters, the RBS participated in a lengthy without prejudice meeting with Mr. Grace, and unfortunately it proved impossible to agree reasonable terms with Mr. Grace by which his complaints might be resolved. Here I now produce what I believe will show the bank are lying. Here is a document, a letter written by my partner's solicitor, who arranged this without prejudice meeting, not for me, but for my partner, and I was asked if I would attend. And I'll read that letter out. You can view it, but I must read this because it is most important. I am the solicitor for Mrs. Margaret George, and I confirm that I attended a without prejudice meeting on Mrs. George's behalf on the 22nd of February 2008. The meeting was held at my firm's offices. In attendance were representatives of the solicitor of the bank and a representative of the bank itself. Now I draw attention to this specifically. The meeting was convened in order to deal with Mrs. George's claims, and it was agreed that Mr. Grace would also attend in order to make known his complaints to the bank at a face-to-face meeting. But the bank have stated to my MP that the meeting was convened specifically for me. It was a without prejudice meeting arranged for me. It was not. My solicitor, or Mrs. George's solicitor, arranged the meeting because he had made a claim on her behalf against the bank for damage, and he arranged the without prejudice meeting to deal with her complaint, not mine. He goes on to say, an opportunity was given to Mr. Grace to set out his complaints, which he did, and I did. I told him what my complaint was to the bank and what I wanted. Thereafter, the bank and its solicitors retired to another room, and discussions subsequently took place through solicitors. I cannot recall the bank putting forward any terms specifically to deal with the individual complaints of Mr. Grace. So there we have a solicitor who arranged the meeting on behalf of my partner, absolutely refuting and contradicting what the bank had told my MP. And with dealing with the bank, I know who I would believe if I was an independent observer. I would believe Mrs. George's solicitor. In this letter to the bank also, after I had constantly requested more information and more data off the bank, they said they hadn't got any. They'd supplied me with them all. And the letter states on the 28th of February to my MP, for avoidance of doubt, we confirm the RBS has already made available to Mr. Grace all relevant documentation that it holds. I didn't believe him. So I made an application to the court under a special civil procedure rule called CPR 3116 for specific disclosure of further documents that I believe the bank held, but they had told my MP they didn't. This cost me money. And I got a date for the application. It was the 19th of June 2008. 3 to 4 days before this application, I received through the post the bank's defence of this application. But included in there was 25, 26 more documents that the bank had said and told my MP that they did not hold. And it was in these documents that I found evidence of the scrubbing of these charges that the bank said they had scrubbed of the cheques that are subject of the dispute. If I had not applied for this application of the court, I would never, ever have found this little bit of evidence.